The world was buzzing with excitement when the discovery was first made. It started as a simple excavation deep in the mountains, an area once thought to be barren and untouched by human civilization. A small team of scientists had been sent to explore this remote region, following up on an ancient map found in an old library. It was believed to be just another treasure hunt, a way to uncover relics from a long-forgotten era, but no one could have predicted what they were about to find. As the team carefully dug through layers of dirt and stone, a glimmering object caught the sunlight. It was buried deep, hidden beneath centuries of rock and earth. At first, it looked like nothing more than a large, weathered stone. But as they uncovered more of the object, the shape began to take form. It was smooth, perfectly round, and had strange markings etched into its surface markings that didn't resemble anything from known ancient cultures. The leader of the team, Dr. Marcus Allen, carefully ran his fingers over the strange markings. His heart raced as he realized that this was no ordinary stone. This was something far more significant. His team gathered around, staring in disbelief. This can't be real, Dr. Allen whispered. This isn't from any known civilization. The object seemed to pulse with an energy that no one could explain. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. As Dr. Allen gently tapped the object, it began to hum softly, a low, resonating sound that vibrated in the air. The air around them seemed to shimmer, and for a moment, everything felt different. It was as if the very fabric of reality had shifted. The rest of the team stood frozen, unsure of what to do. "What do we do now?" one of the scientists asked, her voice trembling. No one knew. They had uncovered something extraordinary, something that shouldn't exist. They had found the impossible. The team quickly realized that they had to act fast. The news of the discovery spread like wildfire. Within hours, government officials and military personnel arrived at the site. Scientists from all over the world began arriving in helicopters and private jets. News reporters set up their cameras, eager to capture the moment for the world. The object had to be carefully examined, and no one wanted to be the last to get a piece of the discovery. Dr. Allen and his team were asked to stop working, but they refused to back down. The object, though still vibrating softly, seemed to hold answers about humanity's past that no one had ever dreamed possible. As the site became increasingly crowded, the object began to respond to the presence of the people around it. At first, it was subtle flickers of light reflecting off its surface, but soon, it began to emit a soft glow. People stared in awe, too scared to touch it, but unable to look away. The energy it emitted was magnetic, drawing everyone in with an irresistible force. It was as if the object itself was alive, waiting for someone to unlock its secrets. For days, no one could figure out what the object was, where it came from, or why it had been buried so deep. Dr. Allen and his team worked tirelessly, running tests, taking readings, and trying every method they could think of to make sense of the strange object. They knew they were on the brink of something incredible, but the deeper they dug, the more questions they had. Nothing about the object made sense. It was advanced, sophisticated, and too perfect to be of any known human origin. The markings on its surface seemed to be some kind of language, but no one could decode it. It was as if the object was from another time, another world. The days passed, and the mystery deepened. One evening, as the sun began to set, Dr. Allen sat alone, staring at the object. His mind raced with possibilities. He couldn't shake the feeling that the object was trying to communicate with him, trying to tell him something. There was a strange sense of urgency in the air, as if the object itself was waiting for something or someone. Without warning, the object hummed louder, and a series of lights flickered across its surface. For a moment, everything in the world seemed to stop. Dr. Allen held his breath as the object's surface began to change. The markings shifted, rearranged, and new symbols appeared, symbols that seemed to glow with an unnatural light. Then, just as quickly as it had started, it stopped. The object was still once more, its surface calm and unyielding. But now Dr. Allen knew something had happened, something had changed. They weren't just looking at a strange artifact anymore. They were looking at the key to unlocking humanity's deepest secrets. He stood up, his heart pounding in his chest. The team had to be informed. This discovery wasn't just a breakthrough, it was the beginning of something far greater. It was a moment that would change everything. The questions were endless, and the answers, Dr. Allen realized, might be more dangerous than anyone could imagine. Humanity had uncovered something that had been buried for centuries, and now, it was time to understand it. As he turned to call his team, he didn't realize that the world, too, had changed. The artifact had begun a chain of events that would lead to a future none of them were prepared for. The days following the discovery of the mysterious object were filled with a strange mix of excitement and fear. The world's eyes were now on the team, their every move being scrutinized by governments, scientists, and news outlets. The air around the excavation site buzzed with activity, but beneath the surface, there was an unspoken tension. Everyone knew they were standing on the brink of something massive, something that could change everything. Dr. Marcus Allen and his team had spent sleepless nights trying to decode the markings on the object, but each attempt only led to more confusion. The symbols weren't like any language known to humanity, and every test they ran produced more questions than answers. Even the world's most advanced translation software failed to make sense of the glowing inscriptions. It was as if the object itself had been designed to be understood only by a select few, or by none at all. One morning, as the sun rose over the excavation site, Dr. Allen found himself staring at the object once again. The scientists had managed to move it to a temporary laboratory built nearby, a sleek metal building that hummed with power. The object was now surrounded by heavy security, and only those who were part of the research team were allowed near it. But even from a distance, it seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The soft glow that had once flickered was now steady, as if it were waiting for something or someone. Dr. Allen couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this artifact than anyone realized. There was something hidden inside it, something it wasn't willing to reveal yet. But what? What did this object hold? And why had it been buried so deep for so long? Was it a gift from an ancient civilization? Or something far older, something that had been forgotten by time? The research team had begun using every method they could think of to unlock the object's secrets. They'd analyzed its composition, which didn't match any known material on Earth. It was made from a substance that was stronger than steel, yet lighter than anything they had ever encountered. But what was even more baffling was its energy source. It wasn't powered by anything remotely familiar. There was no obvious source of energy. It was as if the object had been self-sustaining for thousands of years. Dr. Allen's mind raced. What if the artifact was a key, not just to understanding the past, but to unlocking a forgotten part of humanity's history? The thought sent chills down his spine. What if humanity had once been capable of technology far beyond what they had today, only to lose it over time? What if there were entire chapters of human history hidden in this object, chapters that could change the future of the world? That evening, as Dr. Allen sat at his desk, a sudden flash of light caught his attention. He turned toward the artifact, which was now sitting on a large platform in the center of the laboratory. The glow had intensified, and the symbols on its surface seemed to shift again, almost as if they were alive. It was subtle at first, but then it became more pronounced. The markings rearranged, forming patterns that had never been seen before. It was almost as if the object was communicating. His heart pounded in his chest. Could it be possible that this was more than just an artifact? Could it be a form of communication? A message left behind by the ancient civilization that had created it? But why hadn't it revealed itself before? Why now, without thinking? Dr. Allen stood up and moved toward the object. His hand hovered just above its surface, the warmth of its energy radiating through the air. As his fingers made contact, the room seemed to shift, the walls vibrating with an unseen force. A low hum filled the air, and the object's surface began to glow brighter, its symbols now pulsing in time with the hum. Suddenly, Dr. Allen was flooded with visions, images of a time long ago, a civilization far more advanced than anything humanity had known, flashed before his eyes. He saw towering cities, machines that seemed to defy the laws of physics, and people who looked different but familiar. They were human, but not quite. Their technology was so advanced that it seemed almost magical. And yet there was an eerie sense of decay, as if everything was on the verge of falling apart. The visions were disorienting, but they were also clear. This civilization had known something the world had forgotten. They had mastered the energy of the earth, the stars, and the very fabric of time itself. They had created wonders beyond imagination, but they had also paid a terrible price. Their downfall had been swift, their history erased by time and conflict. And now, through the artifact, the echoes of their civilization were reaching out to humanity. As if begging to be remembered, Dr. Allen jerked his hand back, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The visions faded, but the sense of urgency remained. The artifact had just shown him something profound, a glimpse into a forgotten past that held the key to humanity's true origins. But what was the purpose of this message? Why had it chosen now to reveal itself? The room was still, the only sound the low hum of the artifact. Dr. Allen looked around at his team, who were watching him with a mixture of confusion and awe. He could see the questions in their eyes, the same questions that had been swirling in his mind. What did it all mean? Suddenly, one of the scientists, a young woman named Clara, stepped forward. "Dr. Allen, what just happened? What did you see?" He hesitated, unsure of how to explain what he had just experienced. How could he put into words the images that had flooded his mind? How could he explain the overwhelming sense of discovery? The strange feeling that something ancient and powerful was calling out to them. I don't know yet," Dr. Allen replied, his voice steady but filled with awe. "But I think we've just unlocked something much bigger than we ever imagined." The realization hit him hard. This wasn't just about uncovering humanity's ancient past. This was about unlocking a hidden legacy, one that could change the future of the world forever. The object was not just an artifact, it was a key. And now, the real question was, what would they do with the power it offered? The team exchanged nervous glances, but Dr. Allen knew one thing for sure: their world had just changed. The days following the discovery of the artifact were unlike anything Dr. Marcus Allen had ever experienced. The feeling of being on the edge of something monumental was palpable, but so was the tension that clung to the air. Despite their groundbreaking progress, the team found themselves struggling with the questions that the object had raised. The artifact, now carefully stored in the heavily secured lab, had refused to yield all its secrets. Yet, every day brought new signs that something deeper, more profound, was buried within. Dr. Allen and his team had spent countless hours poring over the object, their hands tracing the strange symbols that shifted beneath their fingers. The patterns on its surface were becoming clearer, but they still couldn't find a way to interpret them fully. Every time they thought they were on the verge of a breakthrough, the artifact seemed to slip just out of reach, its true purpose still a mystery. The puzzle was frustrating, but the curiosity was irresistible. One evening, as Dr. Allen sat alone in the lab, staring at the object, something changed. It wasn't a sudden event, but a subtle shift, a faint hum beneath the surface of the artifact that he could feel in his bones. The room seemed to pulse with energy, and for the first time, Dr. Allen felt as if the object was reaching out to him, not just through the senses, but through something deeper, something primal. The object was alive in ways they hadn't even begun to understand. Dr. Allen's mind raced. Could it be that the artifact was somehow connected to humanity's deepest memories? Perhaps it wasn't just a relic, it was a key to unlocking humanity's forgotten history. A history far older and more advanced than they could have ever imagined. The thought sent chills down his spine. Was this artifact a message, a communication, from an ancient civilization that had been lost to time? He reached out instinctively, his fingers brushing the surface of the object once again. This time, there was no hesitation. The hum became louder, more intense, and the strange symbols on the artifact seemed to glow brighter. But this time, something was different. As his fingers made contact, the world around him seemed to blur and distort. The air felt thick, heavy with a strange energy that pulled at the edges of his reality. For a moment, everything went dark. When the darkness receded, Dr. Allen found himself in an entirely different place. The lab, the walls, the security, all of it vanished. He was standing in what appeared to be a vast, alien city, the buildings towering over him in impossible shapes. The sky was a deep purple, streaked with strange clouds that shimmered with an otherworldly light. The ground beneath his feet was smooth and metallic, yet it hummed with energy. He wasn't sure how he got there, but he knew, instinctively, that this was no dream. The city around him was alive, though empty. There were no people, no signs of life, but the structures themselves seemed to whisper with memories. There was a history here, one that stretched across time, waiting to be uncovered. The buildings were made of materials Dr. Allen had never seen, far more advanced than anything humanity had ever constructed. The technology that powered the city was beyond comprehension, yet it had a strange familiarity to it, as if it was something humanity could have once built, only to lose dot as he walked through the silent streets. Dr. Allen's eyes were drawn to a massive structure in the center of the city. It stood like a monument, taller than anything he had ever seen, its surface covered in the same glowing symbols that were on the artifact. The building seemed to pulse with the same energy, calling him forward. He didn't know why, but he felt compelled to approach. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the very air itself was pulling him closer to the structure. As he neared the entrance, the doors opened with a slow, creaking sound. He stepped inside, his breath catching as he saw the massive chamber before him. At the center of the room stood an enormous stone altar, the surface covered in more of the same glowing symbols, but this time, there was something alive within the symbols. They shifted, moved, and reformed as if they were trying to tell him something important. Without thinking, Dr. Allen approached the altar. His heart raced as he placed his hand on the stone. Instantly, the symbols began to glow brighter, and the entire room seemed to hum with energy. The air around him crackled, and a voice low and resonant whispered in his mind. It wasn't a language he recognized, yet somehow, he understood the words. "You are the one. You are the key." The voice faded, but its presence lingered, heavy and undeniable. Dr. Allen staggered back, his mind reeling. What did it mean? Was he truly the one meant to uncover these secrets? Why had this artifact chosen him? And what was the purpose of this ancient civilization's legacy? The vision began to fade, and Dr. Allen found himself back in the lab, his hands still hovering over the artifact. His heart was racing, his body drenched in sweat. The room was silent again, the hum of the object now a distant memory. For a moment, he sat there, stunned by what he had just experienced. His team had to know. They had to understand what had just happened. But as Dr. Allen reached for the communicator to contact them, he stopped. The words the artifact had spoken echoed in his mind. "You are the one. You are the key." But what did that mean? Could it be that he was being chosen for something far bigger than himself? Had humanity's true history been lost for so long that now only he could unlock its mysteries? As the realization began to settle in, Dr. Allen knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about uncovering the past. This was about shaping the future, humanity's future. And now, the race was on. Others would soon come for the artifact, for its power, for the knowledge it held. But who could be trusted with this incredible discovery? Who could truly wield the power that was about to be unleashed? Dr. Allen's heart pounded. The adventure was just beginning, and the future of humanity rested on the choices he would make next. As the weeks passed, the unease in the lab grew. Dr. Marcus Allen could feel it, the weight of discovery pressing down on him. The artifact seemed to have unlocked something in the world, something hidden just beneath the surface. The visions were becoming more frequent, and with each one, the pressure increased. The artifact's presence had started to alter not only the team's understanding of history, but also their very perception of reality. It wasn't just an ancient object, it was a doorway that led to questions no one was ready to answer. The whispers from the artifact were becoming louder, clearer. It was as though the object was trying to reach them, trying to make them understand the full depth of what it held. Yet, no one could truly make sense of it. There were theories and hypotheses, but no one, not even Dr. Allen, could provide the answers they were all so desperately searching for. One night, as Dr. Allen sat alone in the lab, Studying the intricate designs that covered the artifact, something unexpected happened. The lights flickered, casting long shadows on the walls. The hum of the object, which had become a constant background noise, grew louder. It was more than just sound. It was as if the very air around him vibrated, pulsating with energy. The temperature dropped suddenly, and Dr. Allen could see his breath form small clouds in the frigid air. He turned slowly to face the artifact. It was glowing now, brighter than before, the symbols on its surface shifting in a chaotic dance of light. There was something undeniably powerful about it, something that he could feel deep in his chest, as though the object was alive, responding to his thoughts. Dr. Allen approached it cautiously, his fingers tingling with an inexplicable energy. He hesitated for only a second before he placed his hand on the surface of the artifact. Instantly, the air around him crackled with power, and he felt a jolt of energy surge through his body. His vision blurred, and a flood of images assaulted his mind, images of strange landscapes, alien cities, and vast, technologically advanced civilizations. Faces, their expressions haunting and unreadable, flashed before his eyes, and then, in the middle of the chaotic images, one face stood out, his own. The vision shifted, and Dr. Allen found himself standing in a massive, open field, the sky above him dark and swirling with energy. He was no longer in the lab, but standing in what seemed like an ancient, forgotten land. The air was heavy, charged with the weight of history. Around him were towering structures, their designs unlike anything from Earth. The ground beneath him was smooth and metallic, reflecting the eerie, flickering lights above. He walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the silence. As he passed the towering structures, he noticed something strange, a pattern etched into the surface of the buildings. The same pattern that had been on the artifact. It was as if the buildings were alive, resonating with a silent energy, just waiting to be unlocked. Dr. Allen's heart raced as he realized what this meant. This wasn't just an ancient relic from some forgotten civilization. This was a map to something far greater than any of them had realized. The artifact was guiding him, showing him the path that humanity had lost long ago. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence. It wasn't one he could hear with his ears, but rather, it was a voice that reverberated in his mind, a presence that filled every corner of his consciousness. "You are the key," the voice said, the words echoing through his very being. "You will find what was hidden. You will discover what was lost. But know this: some truths are dangerous to uncover. Proceed with caution." The voice faded, but its message remained, ringing in Dr. Allen's ears like a warning. What did it mean? What was it warning him about? And what would happen if he ignored the danger? His mind raced with questions, but before he could process anything further, the vision shifted again. Now, he was standing before a vast, gleaming machine so intricate and complex that it seemed almost alive. Its surface shimmered, reflecting the swirling lights in the sky. It was a thing of unimaginable beauty, yet its presence was ominous. It seemed to hum with power, its energy surging like a living organism. Dr. Allen stepped forward, his hand reaching out, drawn to it in a way he couldn't explain. But just as his fingers brushed the surface, the world around him collapsed into darkness. Dr. Allen snapped back to reality, his heart pounding in his chest. He was back in the lab, his hands still resting on the artifact, the room still and silent. Sweat dripped down his face as he struggled to catch his breath. The vision had been so vivid, so real. It was like he had been transported to another time, another place. The artifact's glow dimmed, the energy fading as quickly as it had surged. Dr. Allen stood frozen, his mind reeling. He had been shown something, a vision of what humanity's true past could have been. But why? Why had the artifact chosen him to witness this? What did it mean for the future? As Dr. Allen tried to make sense of the vision, a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see his team standing in the doorway, their faces filled with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Clara, the young scientist who had become Dr. Allen's closest ally, stepped forward. "Dr. Allen, we need to talk," she said, her voice urgent. "There's something happening. The artifact, it's doing something. We need you to see this." Dr. Allen's mind raced. He had just experienced something profound. something that felt like a warning. But what was happening now? What was the artifact trying to tell them? He could feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him. The artifact was more than just an ancient object, it was a living piece of history. And it had chosen him to uncover its secrets without a word. He followed Clara and the team down the long corridor to the main laboratory. As they entered the room, Dr. Allen's eyes widened in shock. The artifact was no longer glowing faintly. It was pulsing with a bright, intense light, and the symbols on its surface were shifting more rapidly than ever before. Something had changed. Something was coming, and the team had no idea what they were about to unleash. The tension in the lab was palpable. The artifact, once a quiet enigma, now seemed to have a life of its own. Its glow had become even more intense, pulsing like a heartbeat, with the symbols etched into its surface shifting faster than ever. The energy in the room hummed, vibrating through the air, making the hairs on the back of Dr. Marcus Allen's neck stand on end. There was something undeniably powerful about it, something that felt as though it were waking up from a long, deep sleep. As the team crowded around the artifact, their faces filled with awe and concern, Dr. Allen felt the weight of the responsibility pressing on him more than ever. He had seen glimpses of the past visions of a lost civilization, advanced and full of secrets, but now it seemed the artifact was ready to reveal more. It was as if it was calling out, beckoning them to uncover the rest of the story. Clara, the young scientist who had been working alongside Dr. Allen since the beginning, looked at him with wide eyes. What do we do now? It's like it's waiting for something. Dr. Allen didn't respond immediately. His mind was racing. What had the artifact shown him in his visions? What was it trying to tell them? He couldn't shake the sense that they were on the verge of unlocking something so vast and so ancient that it could change the course of history. But there was also fear of what might happen if they pushed too far, too fast. The voice that had spoken to him during his vision, "You are the key," echoed in his mind. Was he truly the one to unlock whatever power was hidden inside this object? What was the true cost of this knowledge? Without a word, he stepped closer to the artifact, his heart pounding. The room around him seemed to grow still, as if the entire lab was holding its breath. He reached out, his hand hovering just above the glowing surface, before slowly making contact. The instant his fingers brushed the artifact, a violent surge of energy coursed through his body. The force was so intense that he stumbled back, nearly falling. The world around him seemed to fracture, reality itself distorting and warping as though the fabric of spacetime were tearing. He felt his consciousness stretching, being pulled into something vast and unfathomable. Suddenly, he was no longer in the lab. The air was thick and charged with energy, and the ground beneath him was hard and cold. He looked around in confusion, only to realize that he was no longer surrounded by walls or equipment. Instead, he stood on an alien landscape, vast and sprawling, with towering structures that seemed to pulse with an eerie light. The sky was a deep, unnatural shade of violet, and the air shimmered with an otherworldly glow. He wasn't alone. As his eyes adjusted, he saw figures standing in the distance, tall, graceful beings, their faces hidden in shadows. They were watching him, silent and unmoving. Their presence was imposing, yet there was a sense of deep wisdom about them, a quiet power that radiated from their every movement. These beings seemed familiar, yet foreign, as if they were both part of and separate from humanity. Dr. Allen took a step forward, his heart racing. He wasn't sure what he was seeing, but he knew it was important. This was the vision that had been hinted at, the true history of the artifact, and possibly the key to everything they had been searching for. A voice, deep and resonant, filled the air. "You have come at last." The words echoed in Dr. Allen's mind, and he turned to face the figures. They remained silent, but their eyes, glowing faintly, were fixed on him. He felt a pull, as if they were waiting for him to say something, to ask the question that had been burning in his mind since the moment they discovered the artifact. "What is this place?" he asked, his voice surprisingly steady despite the chaos swirling inside him. One of the figures stepped forward. Its face was still obscured, but its voice was calm, almost soothing. "This is the last of our civilization's memory, the remnants of a time long forgotten. You stand where we once stood, where our knowledge, our power, was born. But we failed. We destroyed ourselves in the pursuit of perfection, and the knowledge we sought to master was too much for us to control. Dr. Allen felt his breath catch in his throat. These beings were not human, but they shared something profound with humanity, a drive for discovery, a hunger for knowledge that had ultimately led to their downfall. You have unlocked the door to our past, the figure continued, but the path ahead is fraught with danger. The knowledge you seek is not meant for mortals, yet you are the ones who must decide whether to embrace what we have left behind or walk away. Dr. Allen's heart raced. What was this knowledge? What had these beings discovered that was so dangerous? He could feel the weight of their words pressing down on him. They had unlocked something vast and powerful, but was it truly worth the risk? As if sensing his hesitation, the figure gestured toward a massive structure in the distance. It loomed over them, its design unlike anything Dr. Allen had ever seen. The surface was smooth, reflective, like a mirror, but etched with the same glowing symbols that had covered the artifact. That is the source, the figure said, the heart of our civilization's power. But to unlock it is to unleash a force that has the potential to reshape all of reality. You must decide. Are you prepared for what lies within? Dr. Allen stood frozen, his mind racing. What did it mean? Could humanity truly control such a power? What would happen if they unlocked it? And what would be the consequences if they didn't? The figure stepped back, as if giving him space to make his decision. The silence stretched on, and Dr. Allen knew that this moment was pivotal, not just for him, but for humanity itself. With a final, deep breath, he turned toward the glowing structure. His decision had been made, and there was no going back. Whatever lay ahead, it was time to face it. As he stepped forward, he could feel the weight of the choice he had just made. The ancient civilization, with all its knowledge and power, had left behind a legacy that was both a gift and a curse. And now, humanity was the one who had to decide what to do with it. The adventure was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The days blurred together as Dr. Marcus Allen and his team continued to delve deeper into the mysteries of the artifact and the ancient civilization it represented. The urgency had only increased with each passing moment as Dr. Allen walked through the now permanently secured lab. The sense of something monumental looming over him grew stronger. The artifact was no longer just a discovery. It had become a ticking clock, its pulse sensing with the heartbeat of humanity's future. And every time Dr. Allen closed his eyes, he could still see the vision of the strange, towering structure that had appeared in his mind, its ominous glow, its power. The world outside the lab was shifting as well. Global governments had begun to take notice of the rapid advancements in the research. Foreign agents, corporations, and even rogue groups had begun to descend on the site. Their intentions clear. They wanted control of the artifact and the ancient power it could unlock. There were whispers of military involvement and covert operations. The urgency had escalated, but this time, the danger was more than just about a fight for power. It was a race to control a force far beyond anything humanity had ever dealt with. As Dr. Allen and Clara, his closest collaborator, sat in front of the glowing artifact, a sudden chill filled the room. The object had begun to hum again, its energy shifting like the calm before a storm. The markings on its surface pulsed in rhythmic patterns that, to the untrained eye, would seem random. But to Dr. Allen, it felt as though they were calling him again, urging him to go further. "Do you think we're ready?" Clara asked, her voice soft but filled with a nervous edge. Dr. Allen didn't respond immediately. He could feel the weight of her question. The entire team had worked tirelessly, deciphering what they could, but they were still just scratching the surface. He had seen what lay beneath the surface in his visions, but every time he tried to push further, the artifact seemed to pull away, like it was testing their resolve. "I don't know," he said, finally breaking the silence. "But I know one thing for sure. We can't stop now. If we don't act, someone else will. And I don't know if we'll ever get another chance." "Like this?" Clara nodded, her eyes fixed on the artifact. The silence in the room was broken only by the quiet hum of the object, almost like it was alive, watching. waiting as they continued to study the symbols. Dr. Allen found himself thinking back to the visions, to the warning he had received from the mysterious figure in the dreamlike landscape. Some truths are dangerous to uncover. Proceed with caution, the words echoed in his mind, but there was no turning back now. The world was already watching. The team had to finish what they had started, no matter what. The pressure of their discovery felt unbearable, but it was nothing compared to the weight of the knowledge they were about to unlock. Suddenly, the artifact pulsed once more, this time with such force that the room seemed to tremble. Dr. Allen and Clara both stepped back in alarm. The artifact's surface began to crack slowly at first, and then faster. The cracks spreading like a web across its surface. The symbols twisted and morphed, and for the first time, they began to form words, real words. They were not in any language Dr. Allen had ever seen, but as he stared at them, the meaning seemed to come to him like a distant memory he hadn't known he had. The key lies beyond the gate. The message was clear, yet cryptic. What gate, where, and why had it chosen to reveal this now? Clara looked up at him, her eyes wide. What does it mean, Dr. Allen? The key beyond the gate, is that the structure from your vision? Dr. Allen didn't answer right away. He had seen the structure in his mind, had felt its presence calling to him, but he had never imagined that it was this close. The artifact, the power it held, it was all tied to that structure, and if the artifact was right, the gate had to be opened. But what would they find on the other side? His thoughts were interrupted by the sudden sound of footsteps behind them. The door to the lab had been opened, and several figures entered the room. Dr. Allen recognized them immediately, government agents, their eyes sharp and calculating. Behind them, a man in a sharp suit, someone unfamiliar to Dr. Allen, stepped forward. His presence exuded authority, and there was an undeniable tension in the air. "You've done well," the man said, his voice cold, "but now it's time for the real work to begin." Dr. Allen's heart sank. He had known that the world would take an interest in their findings, but he hadn't expected the government to move so quickly. They had crossed a line, and now there was no turning back. The artifact, whatever it was, had become a pawn in a much larger game. The man continued, his eyes never leaving the glowing object. "We'll be taking control of the operation from here," he said, his voice carrying an unmistakable weight of authority. "I'm sure you understand the importance of keeping the research under strict supervision. We have already prepared a team to assist you in fully unlocking the artifact's potential. You'll be working with them from now on." The words hit Dr. Allen like a punch. His mind raced as the reality of the situation began to sink in. He had known this day would come, the moment when someone would try to seize control. But the pressure, the tension, it was unlike anything he had imagined. Clara's hand brushed against his, a silent gesture of support. But Dr. Allen knew. The decision had been made. The world had moved beyond their discovery. It had become a weapon. As the agents began to take over the lab, Dr. Allen stood in silence, watching as the team packed up their notes and equipment. The artifact was no longer theirs to control, and he wasn't sure who he could trust anymore. The answers they sought, the mysteries they had begun to unravel now, they were under the control of forces that didn't care about the risks. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, Dr. Allen knew there was no turning back. The key had been found, the gate was there, and he would do whatever it took to unlock it, no matter the cost. Whatever power lay on the other side of the artifact, it had to be revealed. The world needed to know the truth, whether it was ready or not. As the door to the lab closed behind them, Dr. Allen and Clara shared one last look. There was no more time to question their choices. The future had already begun to unfold, and the race to uncover humanity's forgotten legacy had just entered its most dangerous phase. The world had changed in ways Dr. Marcus Allen could hardly comprehend. As the days passed, the full scope of the events set in motion by the artifact began to unravel, and the weight of what they had uncovered became heavier by the hour. The governments, the powerful organizations, none of them had any real understanding of what they were dealing with. The artifact wasn't just a key to forgotten history. It was something far more potent, something that could tear apart the very fabric of what humanity knew about its place in the universe. Dr. Allen had always suspected that they were on the brink of something monumental, but now he understood just how deep the mystery ran. The artifact was far from a simple relic of a lost civilization. It was a doorway, a conduit to something beyond human comprehension. And now the door was open, and they had no idea what was waiting on the other side. He sat alone in the darkened lab, staring at the now dormant artifact. The once vibrant glow had faded, but the object was far from inactive. He could still feel its presence, a hum of energy that thrummed just beneath his skin. Clara had left for the night, her mind consumed with the overwhelming revelations. But Dr. Allen couldn't bring himself to leave. He had seen too much, experienced too much to walk away now. The security outside was tighter than ever. The government had taken full control of the operation, and the research team had been split into smaller groups, each working under strict supervision. The freedom they once had to explore and experiment was gone. There was no room for curiosity or questioning anymore, only the goal of harnessing the artifact's power. But Dr. Allen couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading in the wrong direction. The voice, the one he had heard in his vision, "You are the key," echoed in his mind. What did it mean? Why him? Why had the artifact chosen him? He had assumed that unlocking the secrets of the artifact would be a step toward understanding the past, but now he realized it was far more than that. The past was just the beginning. Suddenly, the quiet of the lab was broken by a loud crash. Dr. Allen's heart skipped a beat as he rushed toward the source of the noise. He burst into the main room, his mind racing, only to find Clara standing over a table, a large, ancient map spread out in front of her. She looked up at him, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. "Dr. Allen," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I think I found something." He rushed to her side, his eyes scanning the map. It was old, older than anything they had ever come across. The symbols on it were similar to those on the artifact, but there was something different about this map. It wasn't just a record of places. It seemed to be a guide, a blueprint for something much larger. The markings were all interconnected, forming a web of coordinates scattered across the globe. But one thing stood out. There was a location marked with a symbol they had seen before, the same symbol that had appeared in Dr. Allen's vision. The location was in the middle of the ocean, near a series of uncharted islands. "This is it," Dr. Allen breathed, feeling the weight of the discovery settle in. "This is what we've been looking for." Clara looked at him with a mixture of fear and excitement. "But we've never heard of these islands. How is that possible? What could be out there?" Dr. Allen's mind raced as the pieces fell into place. The artifact, the visions, the symbols, it was all leading them to this location. But what lay at the end of this trail? What was waiting for them at the heart of the ocean? He didn't know, but he couldn't ignore the feeling that it was something they weren't ready for. Before he could speak, the sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway. The door burst open, and several military personnel entered the room, their presence immediately stifling. A tall, stern-faced officer stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Dr. Allen, Clara," he said curtly, "we've been instructed to expedite the operation. The artifact's significance has grown beyond your team's control. The government has authorized a full-scale deployment. We'll be moving forward with the expedition immediately." Dr. Allen's stomach dropped. An expedition? To where? The officer's cold eyes flickered briefly to the map on the table before returning to Dr. Allen. "To the coordinates marked on that map. The artifact's purpose has been confirmed. We need to reach it before anyone else does." Dr. Allen's mind raced, his heart pounding. They were going to move forward without truly understanding what they were about to uncover. He had seen the visions, felt the warning, but the government was too desperate, too hungry for power. They wanted control, and they wouldn't stop until they had it. It was no longer just about knowledge, it was about possession, domination. "They won't be ready for what's out there," Dr. Allen said, his voice low but filled with conviction. "This isn't just a discovery, it's a doorway to something far more dangerous than you realize." The officer narrowed, his eyes unfazed by Dr. Allen's words. "We're moving forward with or without you. If you have any further insights, they'd better be shared with the team." Clara's hand tightened on the map as she looked at Dr. Allen. They both knew what had to be done. This wasn't just about the expedition anymore. It was about ensuring that the artifact and whatever power it held didn't fall into the wrong hands. The artifact was a key, and it had the potential to unlock the worst humanity had ever known. If they didn't act now, they might never have another chance. Get your team ready, Dr. Allen said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. We're going to find it, and we'll make sure it's protected. The officer nodded curtly and turned to leave, signaling the rest of the team to follow. Dr. Allen and Clara shared one final, tense glance before turning their attention back to the map. There was no turning back. The expedition was about to begin, and the future of humanity, its very existence, was on the line. As the lab door closed behind the officers, Dr. Allen knew that this was only the beginning. The questions they had sought to answer were about to be realized, and the answers could either save humanity or destroy it. The artifact had shown them the way, but now it was up to them to unlock its true potential before it was too late.